everybody. Good morning, team. Look at Kevin and I. You see us in a slightly different setting. Well, we decided 2024 was time to change things up a little bit. So we have moved to a new location in Goose Island, right?
That's right. New digs.
New digs, and we've got a new format. We're really excited. You know, it's going on our 4th year.
If you can believe that, 4 years.
Of coffee. Holy cow. So we're changing things up. We know many of you are thinking about doing it as we move into the new year. So there's going to be a lot of things in store. We're going to have great candid conversation. We're going to have great guests throughout the year. So we're excited, and we can't wait to have you join us through all of it. So on that note, there are a few things, though, that don't change, and that is what's in your coffee cup this morning. We hope it's warm. It's got some good stuff in it. I know mine is fresh. And let's jump into the first episode of Coffee with Amy and Kevin 2024.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Amy. It's good to be in the new digs.
Yeah.
It feels a little more comfortable than the past 2 years, I think, in the studio.
Yeah, in the basement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the base, lower level. That's what we call it. Lower level.
Yes.
So I think what we've, it's the beginning. It's midway through January. Things have really just started getting kicked off because of the way that the holidays fell. Yeah. But we're already hearing that things are popping.
Yeah.
So with that, what we thought today that we would do is create some predictions and talk through what we see happening through 24 so we can be prepared.
Yeah. And I think also looking at what's in the headlines. I know one of the things I've been doing over the last few weeks as I'm kind of getting out of the holiday thing is really looking at what is in the news, what is the news that we're seeing. I know I look at Inman, Keeping Current Matters. What are some of the sources that you look at?
Yeah, likewise. It's Inman, it's Riz Media, and then it's also local, like Crane's Chicago Business or Crane's Detroit, different local publications too that get more into the detail there.
Yeah. And, I think the interesting thing is the predictions, I don't know, I feel really kind of optimistic about them. One of the things that I took a look at, which I thought was interesting, was the home price forecast for this year. When I looked at Keeping Current Matters, I think they said kind of a collective of all of these people that are smarter than us, Kevin, that kind of tell details on where the market's going to go and what prices are going to look like. The average was at about 1.4% of appreciation for the year. And that probably for so many of us feels like, holy cow, that is nothing, right?
It's
but
been
the reality
Disney
is,
World, right? I mean, it's been wild for the last several years.
what did they call 2020 and 2021 the unicorn years? That's now what they're being coined. So I think the idea that we are slowing down and appreciation is going to be modest, I actually think that's going to be such a good thing for us. The rest of the components of the market have to catch up, right? It's like being able to afford a house. So that's income increase. Wage increase has to catch up. And then we also have to look at mortgages, right? And then also just supply as we're kind of handling it. So I actually think it's good news that the forecast is really modest.
It's like a safety, actually. Everyone was talking about a bubble and whether it was huge drops in home values or the market collapsing. This readjustment is actually needed to make sure we don't get into a bubble. Yeah,
and I actually think 2023 was kind of our year. That readjustment kind of felt yucky to a lot of us. It was a
tough.
Little bit of kind of walking through mud, but I just even feel it in the air. And I always say as real estate agents and being in the business, we always feel it before the data shows it, So I actually think this is going to be a strong year, a year where agents have to work hard. But I think with home prices kind of being modest, it doesn't mean, though, that we aren't going to see sellers doing things and buyers doing things. So, I think it's a good thing. I think 4.9% was the average appreciation over the last 40 years. But then you look at the last couple of years, it was 8%, double digits in some markets, just not sustainable, right? So the headlines are saying it. I think we are feeling like it's a good prediction and it will be a good thing if we see just average or modest appreciation as we move into this year.
Agreed. Uncomfortable, but I think it's a needed change, and there's always opportunity, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Opportunity. Buyers and sellers are going to move. So I think one of the things that is going to heavily impact what happens this year, and we all know this already, is our mortgage rates. Mm-hmm. So home values and appreciation varies by market. Mortgage rates hit everybody, right? With the exception of differences across price bands. So in the high-end luxury market, people tend to buy more with cash. In the starter home or mid-tier market, they tend to buy with mortgage rates. So There have been a lot of headlines about mortgage rates
Yeah.
and conflicting headlines too.
Yeah.
At the end of 23, there were headlines talking about how the Fed was going to, they were planning 4 or 5 reductions during 24.
Yeah.
At the beginning of 24, very early in January, headlines came out saying maybe they won't do that. So how
Right.
do we're all hoping for another Disney World
Yeah.
because we know as interest rates come down, it's going to open up opportunity.
Yeah.
And specifically in those lower price point markets where people are getting mortgages. So we'll watch interest rates closely. I think what we need to watch, though, is really once it gets to a certain point, once we get down to below 6, we need to be prepared to handle as much opportunity as possible. And I think part of what we'll talk about over the next coming weeks is being prepared to handle an onslaught of business as buyers open up. So we hope we get there.
Yeah, we love that idea, onslaught of opportunity and buyers and sellers. Well,
That's
the other
right.
thing, too, that I was just reading in Inman is that, with the mortgage rates, we focus on it being in real estate, but they're also using rates as a lever to manage whether or not we're going to go into a recession. If
Right.
we are going to go into it, if it's going to be a mild one. So, there's so many dynamics. And then you kind of think, okay, rates are down, but if they go down too far, it might push us into a recession faster. So I think the thing that I like now, kind of going into 2024 as it relates to rates, though, is that everybody's kind of adjusted to this new normal. Like, I never thought, because we had a 2.99% rate, right? I never thought that, being able to say 6 or even 5, holy cow, like a rate with a 5 in it is going to be like Disneyland, So I think it's been 12 to 18 months. People have gotten adjusted to the new norm. And I think the reality is, it's time to move on. Like, life happens.
Agreed.
So
We're past that initial shock. And I also think the interest rates, what's interesting about it is that you've probably seen these graphs too, because I see it in some of those articles where recently it's been showing that it is actually much more affordable to rent than to buy. Well, that's not good news for us as agents, right? Or in this industry. Of course, we want to focus on buying and selling. But as rates come down, the affordability index goes up across a lot of these markets. So like you said, not too far, but it is going to open up the opportunity there. And so we'll keep a close eye on the mortgage rates as we do every day.
yeah, because I think even though people are renting, buying's the long game,
That's
right?
right.
And you're investing in yourself, and it's for so many people the largest asset and wealth vehicle for so many. So it'll be great if we can get some of those people out of renting into buying. So we'll just have to, again, it's sort of a wait and see, right? These are predictions, and we'll be here at the end of 2024, probably looking back and saying this is what
Do you
actually
have
happened.
a rate? Do you have a rate to guess at the end of 24?
Rate
Or is
to
it
guess.
too early to say?
It might be too early.
giving you an out there.
What am I
Is it
held?
too
What am I held to if I get it
I
wrong?
don't know, $1.
Okay,
We'll just do a
I'm gonna
$1.
say 5.85. End of year.
Okay.
I mean, I might be a little bullish on rates,
That's a
but
little
we'll
bit.
see.
That's a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll do 6.375.
Okay. You heard that here first. 585.
6.375.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a phone number.
All right.
All right. And I want to talk on one other thing that I think is really hot on so many agents' minds is that whole concept of supply. And a lot of predictions,
Inventory?
again, supply, inventory, what we're seeing. And look, every market is different. You can go into every metro market and look into particular suburbs, then into the actual metro city area. You can even go into sub-neighborhoods in a city, and, the dynamics can be different, right? We know that here in Chicagoland, different areas, you're seeing things clip away faster in some spots than others.
Right.
But I think the overall kind of national trend and what I was seeing is that we still have a lot of lag. Like, even though we've got a lot of new home starts and new construction is coming in, we're seeing a lot more developers starting to build. It's gonna take time for that to catch up. So I think this year, and probably even into the next 2, maybe 3 years, we're still going to see that pent up, supply.
Yes.
And I think we're always going to have buyers in particular markets too, where they're all going to be really competitive for a while. I think unless something really drastic changes altogether, we're going to have to see that.
I agree. And if anything happens with home builders or new housing starts, that's going to impact this as well, because a big shift in building codes in specific communities or neighborhoods or interest rates even will impact builders as well. Yeah. So that'll further either support further inventory, or it'll determine that we still don't have enough inventory to sell, and then we see more price appreciation, and then we see, it's this cycle, all these different levers being pulled. So it's interesting to make predictions.
So let's talk about predictions, though. Magic 8 Ball, right? How many of you guys, did anybody of you use this? I remember this, I think it was Christmas, 7th grade. And I think I said, am I going to get my first kiss this year? And it said, ask again later.
Is that what you got then when you did it?
That's what I got today, yes.
All
right, so what do you want the Magic 8 Ball?
Well, I was never allowed, this was sorcery in my house.
Sorcery.
Yeah,
people do say sometimes I am a witch. So perfect.
Okay.
All right, so.
Not me, I never say that.
Yeah, I mean witch, like in a fun, like.
Yes, in a fun, like
creative.
Halloween, spooky
sort of.
way.
Yeah, like,
yes.
Sarah Jessica Parker in one of those fun movies. Yeah.
Got it.
All right, Magic 8 Ball. You got to have, what do you want a prediction for? Because this thing is going to be real accurate.
Can it be all the way through 24?
It can be all the way through 24, sure.
Okay. Will I make a vision board in 2024?
Oh, that's a good one.
This is an ongoing. Amy's always trying to convince me to.
Ask again later.
Well, we'll have to check in, just like your kiss in the 8th grade.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Love this thing. Who needs a crystal ball when you have the Magic 8 Ball?
Where did you find that?
Target.
Oh,
Target
okay.
has
They still
everything.
sell them.
Yeah, they still sell them.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, cool.
I remember it being bigger, but I think I was smaller. So, probably
Yeah.
Scale adjusts
Right.
after
Your
a few
hands
years.
were smaller at the time.
Yes. So regardless of predictions, Magic 8 Ball, I think there's a lot of opportunity in the air.
Agreed.
I think as we wrap up, my thought is that 2023 was a sit on the sidelines year for a lot of people, particularly sellers. Yeah. I think they were like, let's see what's going to happen. Our rate's going to come down so that we can make a move, so that we can take advantage of selling on the high. And I think now there's a point where they realize we can't wait forever. Rates are where they're at. We'll adjust at a certain point in time, but life goes on. Like, we want to get to Florida. We want to downsize. We want a first floor ranch, whatever those things are. Or we've got 3 kids in a 2-bedroom condo and it's time to move up. So I think 2024 is going to be the year of, let's make a move because we sat and wait in 2023.
I think so too. It's going to unleash that pent up demand. Yeah. And all the predictions are looking that way. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, we've attached a lot of resources, quite a few resources to the email here. And as we wrap up, I know while we're in a new environment, even though we're in a new space, new setup, new conversation, what are we going to do?
We want to say thank you for joining us for our first official episode of the year, our first podcast style.
That is right.
And as we always say, I can't change this. Make it a great Tuesday. Until we see you next week, remember, you got this.
Smooth as butter.